The Simone Feiler Podcast, giving authors a platform. Welcome to the podcast.
G'day there, Simone Feiler. Welcome to the Simone Feiler Podcast. I'm very stoked to be speaking to my guest today, the legendary Frank Matus, international speaker, author, podcaster, commercial strategist, executive mentor and coach.
Look,
you are busy.
All the different big words, I suppose, that I can fit on my LinkedIn profile, I guess. Good to be here, Simone. Thank you for having me, and thank you for the experience of working with you. It's really sort of opened my eyes and elevated the writing process that I embarked on. So thank you for having me.
My absolute pleasure. Thanks for coming in and doing it with me.
Pleasure.
Conquer Your Crisis of Consciousness is
a mouthful. It's a mouthful.
Well, at first it was, but now I know it, so it's easier, right?
Yeah, it's a big word there. Like, trying to tackle some of those big words like consciousness and responsibility and happiness, and in a way that's not that's easier to spell. I think is probably the way we're trying to go.
And I like your strapline too. Without the self-help hype.
Yeah, well-being without the self-help hype. I think one of the ways I was approaching this is I'm not at any, and you see it in the book. I don't talk from any sort of, I call it the mountaintop of happiness, because that's not helpful to anybody. I'm talking about I'm in the trenches. I'm trying to figure this out as I go.
Yeah. And
I found a couple of little tips and tricks that have helped me explore it further, rather than, oh geez, this is the silver bullet and all of a sudden we are now happy. No, it's not the way this works, unfortunately.
Everyone will be reading that.
Yeah, 100%. We'd sell more copies.
Definitely.
For sure. But without the self-help hype, wellness is such a big deal these days. I don't feel I'm yet in the wellness industry. Right. I want to just explain it without that sort of hype. Just some simple stuff that I found helped me go along the path that got me to effectively write about this, but also discover some of that internal, fulfillment and meaning within my own life, and talked about some of these ideas that I think are important for us as a society to be a bit more conscious of.
Definitely.
And be conscious of our consciousness.
Yeah.
That's a funny thing. When I think about it, it kind of boggles my mind. I put it in the same basket as, the pyramids in Egypt, or Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, or these things which we have no idea about. How is it something we don't talk about more often? Our consciousnesses might just be the most important resource that we've ever had access to, especially personally.
100%.
And we don't talk about it. No one understands it. So I tried to put it in a bit of a fashion where, I'm no scientist, I'm not a psychologist either, but I put it in some layman's terms about how to understand what consciousness means to me, and hopefully some of it resonates.
Yeah, it definitely will. It did for me. But it's certainly a new thing, I think, just, going into your consciousness.
Yeah, it's growing. I think it's growing. I'm grateful and thankful that it seems to be growing.
Yeah.
That people are taking a little bit more
Absolutely.
notice of it, because we're being distracted.
Yeah.
Right. And without putting the tinfoil hat firmly on the head, that distraction is not necessarily your fault, but I talk about it being your responsibility to recognize that and realize it within yourself, because that distraction is temporary. It's like a Band-Aid over a bullet wound. Your happiness, when you inherently tie it to this distraction, right, is getting corrupted. It's getting corrupted in a way that, people are profiteering over your
not knowing. Not looking into yourself.
That's
being
right.
unaware.
And this is not, this is not meaning that you need to be thinking about going and spending time at an ashram, or, donning a robe and meditating 8 hours a day. It's just really realizing who you are as a conscious being, and taking some active steps to manage your expectation, take some responsibility of your own happiness, and do a couple of things which I'm calling mindful activity as kind of an umbrella concept, to help foster that in a different in a way that is proactive for yourself.
Exactly.
Rather than, I'm not telling people, well, do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life, because that's a lot of, that's kind of BS, right? Because I love to go snow skiing and hang out with my friends, and no one's paying for that, right?
There would probably be a way if you really wanted to.
Possibly
instructing,
there,
but that's also work, right?
But then also, sometimes the missing piece of that puzzle, right, with the way people operate professionally, is do what you want and you'll never work a day in your life. And maybe do what you're good at, and it might help you pay for some of the things that you really like.
Right.
And so,
cool.
That's a bit of a different thing. So my position and my perspective on this is not to throw out the baby with the bathwater on the way people are doing things, but just to look at it from an objective perspective within the life that you're currently leading, right? Realize that, there's some things that I could probably just think about. Think about maybe, am I holding on to stuff? Am I externalizing? The expectation is the root of unhappiness, right? Neil Strauss talks about this a lot, right? That's externalizing the agency of your consciousness. You're giving that precious resource and the keys to it to somebody else, right? And that's just seems like, you don't give away your PIN number, right? And so when you hand that across, just even realizing that is probably a step in the right direction. And then when you put together a couple of these, simple things, which I started to discover, I've been thinking about this for a long time.
Yeah, well, let's find out. When did you first find out about it?
Okay, well, there's probably two starting points here.
Okay.
I probably started to think that there was more going on in this space in 2007 when I was in Amsterdam with a friend of mine, and we were exploring our consciousnesses,
Yeah, you were in Amsterdam.
In some sort of way, shape or form, just if my mother's listening to this podcast at some point. But I feel like that's where the journey started. And then I started to sort of gather some steam with this over the next, 14 or 15 years. But things started to really click where I felt compelled to write some of this down and talk about it more. On Boxing Day 2023, so just a little over a year ago.
Yeah.
I was up on Mount Tamborine. A tornado had just come through, right? My family was up there. It was sort of a moment in time.
Yeah.
Who's to think
Terrifying.
a tornado in southeast Queensland? We couldn't quite wrap our heads around that. And then we're seeing the devastation. Like I remember, my mum and I were going to the motel that we were staying at, and I was sort of helping her to a room. I left the keys in the car, left the room key in the car, and we went to go back, and there's stuff flying left and right, and it was nuts. So the next day, when I'm coming back to Brisbane, I speak to a friend of mine, a really good friend of mine, actually Pat Savina, who, if you're listening to the audiobook, you'll hear his music coming through on this.
Beautiful.
Right, really good thing. Shout out to Pat.
Yeah.
And to Jettison Ballast for providing some music for my audiobook, which I'm very thankful for. I hope you like it.
Yeah.
You can find it on Spotify.
Yeah.
But
It's
so
called
we're
Barra
catching up.
Fishing.
Yeah, it's called Barra Fishing. is the track that we use. But there's a whole bunch of music by Pat and Jettison Ballast that's there. It's really nice to listen to. And so he was over here. He's a Queenslander originally, but he lives in Perth, and he was here with some of his musical savant mates going instrument shopping. Now, I have played guitar since I was a teenager. On and off, and generally badly. I'll pick it up and I'll put it down. It finds its way into the case, and then I just don't see it for 2 years, and onwards and upwards to go. But it's always been a big part of my life. But I've never really played for anybody, right? It was never really about me playing for people. I went to a university where all of my friends were musical geniuses like Pat.
Right.
And so, the need for me to pick up the guitar was probably a little less the societal need wasn't as great.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
You did it for you.
But since throughout that I was doing it for me, like afterwards especially. And so every couple of years I'd pick it up, I'd hit this brick wall, and then I'd pick it up again and that same brick wall. And so I was with these guys who are all musical geniuses, and they were shopping for an instrument, and I found this electric guitar, and it reminded me of a old blues Gibson style electric that I had when I was younger, and I lost in a house fire. And so I'm like, I'll buy this, and I'll make a commitment to playing. And so I'd had an acoustic guitar at home, and so when I went to go and pick up the guitar, the new guitar, I was picking up my acoustic guitar,
Right.
and it was a strange thing. So I started playing a little bit more, and then going through the process, and then doing some training, and then doing, really engaging and breaking past that glass ceiling.
Yeah.
And glass ceilings really bother me, right? Whether it be professionally and personally, it's something that grates on me.
You want to get through.
I just want to get through for myself, or the fact that they exist in the first place. That's probably
Or do
explore
they?
that in another book, maybe.
Or do they?
Anyway, or do they? Maybe they just exist up here.
Or through the medium.
Yeah, possibly, or just the way that society is constructed. It's important for
That's
people
kind
to
of
have
like that. Sorry for interrupting.
Yeah,
but
right.
I think it's a flea experiment where they have the fleas in the cup, and the fleas they have a lid on the glass.
Yes.
And the fleas only jump up so high.
Yeah, okay.
And then when
Oh,
they
is that right?
remove that piece of paper or whatever it is, they never get higher than that.
Because they're used to that.
'Cause that's all they think
That's an interesting industrial revolution style concept, I think.
So it's just a matter
very
of
true.
breaking through it.
When some of those experiments get funny like that, aren't
Yeah.
they? Like there's one where they do it with ice, and I can't remember this Japanese scientist that was talking about this. You can find it where when you've giving the water with intention and
seen
how
that.
it freezes.
Yeah.
Right, and just by putting, you can do this at home. You can do it with rice or ice.
Yep.
Right, but the way it freezes has got a different freezing composition
Yeah.
depending on the intention that you're giving it.
That's
Because you
right.
put a little note on it, love, hate,
And it looks different under a microphone, doesn't it?
completely different under a microscope.
Microscope.
Yeah, under a microphone definitely, but microscope possibly. Yeah,
Under a microscope.
Yeah, so anyhow, started playing the guitar, started committing to being better at it, learning more. I engaged with a guy that was all the way over in Scotland that sort of understood where we were at. Shout out to Tony from Guitar Made Easy.
Right, so you did lessons online.
Lessons online, but it wasn't so much the lessons. It was the accountability, right? And so I found myself, and I talk about that in the book a little bit, about the stages of it, because it's not just about playing guitar or whatever your chosen relaxation / mindful activity is about, because everybody's different. But there's a couple of steps that take it from being just leisure and something that you're doing to bring it almost into a meditative state
right.
to me. And so I call this functional meditation. And it's about doing something that you enjoy, progressing with it, so it's got to be difficult enough, and then being accountable, so you're progressing it just a little bit further, and that provides some sort of singular focus. At least it did with me, and then all of a sudden the noise just started to dissipate. And so it was by playing the guitar that allowed me to shut off the craziness of the rest of my life, even if it was for 20 minutes or so, and then I could, when I came back 20 minutes later, right, and I was doing work or whatever again, everything was just a little bit softer, and the penny dropped for me. This is meditation, because I've done some meditation before, and it's been okay. And I've got, I love listening to Alan Watts's guided meditation, and I definitely understand. I'm not ignorant to the concept or the benefits of it, but sometimes it just missed for me. I couldn't quite shut my mind off. Think of nothing, be with everything.
It's
oh,
very
geez,
hard.
there's a lot to do, right?
Yeah, very
And so
hard.
this was the penny drop moment for me playing the guitar. It could be different for everybody. Painting, pottery, whatever, drawing. Whatever. Everybody's got their
Editing.
own version. Hey, absolutely, 100%. Like that, doing videos and audio and stuff when you're really
Well, you
just
lose
really
time,
focused.
don't you?
Yeah, especially if
That's-
it doesn't feel like busy work to you.
Yeah.
I think everybody's different. I make no claims that I know the secret bullet.
Even
for it.
gardening.
Absolutely,
yeah.
gardening would be a big one. Being into nature, thing. I think exercise
Exercising?
sits different though.
Really?
I think it's equally as, if not more important, but I think it's a little bit different. I think it needs to be used in conjunction with. I think
Yeah,
some people could make
definitely.
it the same, right? But I think it's almost. I didn't talk about it too much in my book, but I feel like it needs almost its own chapter,
Right.
because
Interesting.
it's a big part of it. And when I do a revision, I'll think and talk about that a little bit more.
Excellent.
But it wasn't the journey that I went on in
No.
this period of time. So that's what started it. And it's funny, creativity breeds creativity. And so by doing that, all of a sudden, things started to come up. These ideas that I've been toying with for some time, some of them which I think are original thoughts, turns out not so original, but original to me at least, so I'll claim them.
Interesting then, that other people, are we all collectively...
Even now that we're about to release, we're launching on the 27th of February with the book and the audio book and the ebook all at once. I'm finding other people are starting to talk about some of the very similar concepts that I'm doing, and I'm really happy for that. I don't find that threatening. I find that inspiring.
Yeah, definitely.
Because if I'm talking about it and someone else is talking about it, well, then hopefully we get a little bit more reach, because the important thing here, and just from a from a completely selfish level, I used to say I had a fear of being relevant for myself, and I've changed that around.
Right.
For me, I strive to be relevant for myself. And when the deliberate act of which, right, might just be where it's all at, right? And so by doing these little steps, I don't think it's about a destination. It's about the journey. And Jimmy Carr will say it's not just about the journey, it's who you're becoming on the journey.
That's so true.
Right. He also swears a lot like me, so I feel like we've got a bit of a kindred spirit.
Yeah.
So, not yet on your podcast. I don't think I've dropped an F-bomb yet.
Let's hope
it's
you don't.
coming. It's coming. I'll warn everybody. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's okay. We're adults here.
Yeah, adults. There's definitely no kids on the internet. So.
Especially under 16 here in social
Here's
media
the disclaimer.
in Australia.
Yeah, that's right.
Anyway, but how good does Frank's book look?
Oh yeah, here we go. Yeah, here we go. We've just got the delivery on Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully the camera's got that.
And inside you can show your camera.
Yeah, it's a I've spent a little bit of extra money in the production to just have some nice imagery on the way through. There's a couple of photos of me in there, so you can skip past those pages. You're going to be listening to it as well, right? So maybe you listen to it and have some of those things just to give it a little bit of I guess a grounding in the intention, I suppose, for what this is about, because it's not a novel, right? It's a couple of ideas and examples of and how I've grouped together some of these bigger concepts.
Yeah.
And I've grouped them together under three major headings. That's right? And so expectation, responsibility, and mindful activity.
Yeah.
Right? And so there's chapters that will loosely fit under those and cross over. Right? But when you're talking about expectation, expectation is the route to unhappiness. When you think about expectation is a completely it's a completely personal and independent thought, right? The person, unless you're voicing your expectation, you have zero control over the outcome of an activity.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you talk about it like that, it's that then flows into the responsibility side, because it's your responsibility to act, react, and respond in ways that is beneficial to you and to the people around you. You're not an asshole in regards. There you go. Number one, first one. We'll count them.
We'll get the swear jar.
We'll get the swear jar. Jeez, that's going to be expensive. Yeah, it's going to be an expensive day.
No.
But anyway, you're taking responsibility for the way you are behaving within the world from some of these external influences.
Yes, definitely.
Right? By being bombarded by it, right? And then, having your immediate sort of lizard brain reacting to everything without you taking some control and responsibility over that, right? Well, then you're outsourcing your agency of all of that to someone else, and you've got no right to expect any different to what you get if you are not involved in the process.
Yes.
Right? If I'm
you got to be
hitting
proactive.
You've got to be proactive. Otherwise, if you're not hitting some of these things with a hammer, well, then how can you expect anything different? And then you start extrapolating that out. And that's where unhappiness lies, is because, I thought somebody was going to, do this for me, and I thought I was going to get this promotion, or whatever. Like, everyone's version of this is different. I've given some examples in the audio book and in the book specifically, but we could talk about those specific examples forever, because everyone's experience is different.
That's right.
And so I tried to give some to help, jogs some of the conversations with yourself along. But yeah, so one flows into the next. And then that last stage is that mindful activity. What are some of these things that you can actually do to help yourself along, right? And we talk about communication, but we also talk about some bigger concepts, like one of the ones, selfish forgiveness, for instance, about forgiveness being a deliberate act, not for forgiving everybody because you're some kind of oracle and you can, you've got no feeling and you're acting like a robot. No, forgiveness is for yourself. Forgiveness has given you the ability to let some stuff go for your own mental well-being and some peace and the road to finding that happiness, because that stuff causes cancer, man. Some of those words like angst and guilt and regret, and some of the ones that you cast onto other people that you're holding these. Some of these arguments are purely in your head.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not having them with some people. Some of the times you're only having them with yourself.
Yeah.
And I call that whipping yourself with a bloodied whip, right? You've already been hurt once. Why are you continuing to do this? Let it go. Move on. Or take some steps to find a way to address it or move on. If it's not important enough to do something about it, then why are you hanging on to it? So anyway, we're covering a lot of independent ground. I don't want to give the whole book away. That'll sort of defeat the purpose of
there's a lot.
writing
It's
it.
jam-packed, and there's a lot more than this very short chat, I can tell you. But interesting to find out that you discovered all of this on your travels, and then you decided to, you were playing guitar and stuff and getting into that flow state and obviously becoming aware of it.
Yeah.
But then you decided, and you said you were jotting things down, but you decided to write a book.
Well, that's right. So to take it back a little bit, my collaborator on this book and kind of my mentor in, finding my voice with this is a lady named Katrina Friel. She does she's been helping people find their voice and become an expert in the things that they find important for 20 years. And her and I have known each other for a really long time. She contacted me years ago and she wanted me to write something. And I didn't really have anything to say then, right? And so it might have been about...
Was this before you got all of this?
This is before this. This was probably evolving, as nascent ideas in my mind. But, there was some stuff, like I've been in the corporate world for a while, so there was some, I've had my own business for a long time. I've been consulting for small businesses. You worked on the FTSE 100, or you were well, that's right.
project
So
manager?
I've been on some companies that are on those lists and helping companies that are on those lists. I've worked all over the world and worked with thousands of companies by running events that help them engage with their clients. So I've done, the corporate side of it quite a lot, and then I was consulting to those industries, using events as a sales and marketing medium, helping people really lean into the face-to-face element, keeping relationships at the front of how business relationships would grow and develop and ultimately become profitable. So I'd talk about, she wanted me to sort of probably lean into some of that.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel like that was what I wanted to talk about. I just didn't feel like that was the time. But come June, and Kat and I have kept in touch over the years, but we haven't really talked about this. We used to talk, once every couple of years or whatever. So we're all in each other's lives, but we're in different states and whatnot.
Yeah, life goes on.
Life goes on. And so I just called her and I'm like, hey, it's time. And she's like, I've been waiting. Right. And so we got together, and then that's when the ball started rolling. She really helped me understand my values, both professionally and personally, because they need to intertwine.
Yeah.
And so she wanted to make sure that if I was putting something down on paper, that it was not just because there was an idea for a book there.
Yeah.
It's because it was who I'm authentic and
Yeah.
who I'm meant to be. The stuff is important to me enough to engage, and it's not divergent from who I am as a person, right? And so she helped me really understand that. And so thanks to Kat, shout out to her. She will definitely be listening to this at some point.
Hi, Kat.
Right? And I hope you guys can collaborate.
You've done a really good job, because I've listened to the book and it's...
Yes, we're working together. So we're in launch mode now. So we're working together on getting all of the business behind the about the book and the idea, and you'll eventually, it hasn't launched yet, but the business behind the book, Conquer Your Crisis of Consciousness, is called the Consciousness Initiative, right? And it'll be theconsciousnessinitiative.com. It's not live yet. It will be in a couple of weeks.
Yep.
But once that's all live, all of these things will be available on there, whether it's the audio book, or you can order a book, or you can contact me directly to have some of these conversations, and we can have a quick chat and see whether there's some extra work that we can do together to help uncover some of these things once you sort of understand some of the concepts. And if you need me to help drag them out of you kicking and screaming, I'm happy to do that. Yeah.
So are you envisaging, going into different areas, maybe businesses or groups or collective people sitting together where you can teach them these concepts, or
look, teach is probably a strong thing. Some coaching and some training, because look, I've got a day job, and so I work in the accommodation industry. I'm a broker in the accommodation industry at the moment, and that keeps me pretty busy. But I needed to do this.
Yeah,
I needed to get this out. I hope people see that it comes across, that's something I just had to get out. And it's kind of nice to have it out of the grey matter, and it's just like I've uploaded it to the cloud, but it's now in fact in print.
Well, you just got your book on Friday. How did that feel?
Literally, it was kind of surreal, and it was like when I first listened to the first edits of the audiobook. It was kind of you're hearing some of this stuff come back to you, and when you're writing, I think everybody that's ever done anything creative can get a little imposter syndrome with this.
100%.
But then when you hear some of it back, it was a little bit of an out-of-body experience, a little bit, where I'm like, oh, geez, this guy's got something, he's onto something here. And that's, saying it as humbly as possible, but because I'm not trying to preach anything, all I'm trying to do is explain how I've started to work some of this stuff out, and it's by no means it's by no means finished. I'm looking forward to getting back to some of the concepts that I talk about, because I've been busy doing it rather than experiencing it for myself.
Yeah.
And so so I will definitely hope to be doing some speaking, I don't know. We will see how it goes out, but I'm definitely open to it, and I'm hoping that just by having some of these conversations and the ability to have some of these conversations with some people that need to hear it.
Yeah.
And I'd sort of have already, like I do this for some of the people in my life, not in a formal way. It's just kind of a thing that happens.
Yeah, when you hang out with your mates.
That's right, and that's where some of these ideas that we're sort of exploring have come from. And some of them, I've changed some names to keep some privacies loosely. Yeah. But a lot of those ideas have come from being able to discuss some of this stuff with people that are just looking for a little bit of mental peace and clarity and some meaning and fulfillment, or whatever sort of is feeling like that there's just something missing, And I think our society at the moment, we can feel it. We feel it, that there's something just not quite right, just a little off,
Do you think?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an easy thing and we can quip about it. Yeah. But in reality, I mean,
there's like a waking up of consciousness.
Yeah, and then if you look at, you can talk to some people who are more scientific about this now, and they talk about it as being if it was a J curve of waking up, or that consciousness curve, where at that just about to start to take off,
how exciting,
kind of thing. And I feel very grateful and humbled to be part of that journey. And I hope this sort of helps people to start thinking about their consciousness as the most important resource that we have. Without that, what do we have? Yeah. It dictates every experience that we have. Everything from what we're sitting to, how we're feeling, that chocolate that you eat, the whole thing,
That reminds me of how I first heard about it. So I went through a breakup, and obviously it hit me hard, was very depressed. I went to talk to somebody about it, and they gave me a cranberry, like a dried cranberry, and put it in my mouth, a psychologist or counsellor, and then said, don't swallow it. I want you to feel what it feels like in your mouth, and ask me these questions. And I just immediately brought me to being aware of my consciousness,
being present,
present. So thinking, okay, and then I started listening to some different podcasts, and Leo was one of them, and he talked about when you walk out your front door, actually be totally aware that you're walking out of your front door.
Yeah, okay.
So I
That's
started
interesting.
doing that, and then really thinking, okay, I'm here, and then in the car, I've got my hands on the steering wheel, really.
That's some really granular get down there and be, that being present
But
thing
that's where the magic started happening.
Absolutely. Isn't it funny? When the universe is there to... The universe is a playful beast, right? And it can be horrible at the same time, but it can be playful. And if you're willing to
play.
to play with it and just give it some thought. I've had some similar experiences when I'm deliberately engaging, whether it's being present or being, on that creative line or, really exploring ideas with people, and I can feel the evolution happening, right? And the universe is behind that. And so far be it for me to stop if the wind is at my back on this, if the universe wind is at my back, I had to get it out. I've got to talk about it. That's why I'm here with you, and that's why I'm going to continue doing it. So to circle back to your question, I am really hopeful that this is leading to something where I'm talking about this for myself, selfishly, right? But for our entire society, so we can just start thinking. And if I've just made you think, and you've just made someone else think, that's the way this works,
start,
right?
Exactly.
And look, hey, hopefully I get a chance to talk about some of these concepts to wider audiences. Yeah. But if not, if it means I'm just having singular conversations, that's something as well, right? Because
that's enough.
The ripple effect's a thing.
That's right.
And being present for that process. It's a feedback loop, it's all happening at once. And, I tried to stay fairly grounded with some of this stuff. Like I'm a bit of a universe guy because I can feel it, right? But that word can be interchangeable. Universe, consciousness, those words. There's other words that fit in there. God's definitely one of them. Yeah. I feel like some of those words have been bastardized and just eroded a little bit over our engagement in our industrial revolutionized problem-solving mindsets, as what Graham Hancock would talk about. And so if I get the opportunity, if I'm very grateful for my ability to think about some of this stuff. And if some of this stuff happens to be just a little bit resonate, well, I'm open to talking about it more because I think it's important. I think we need to take back a little bit, realize we're being distracted, right? And people are benefiting from that. And that benefit might be taken directly from you, right? And that's making you unhappy. Yeah. So take back some control. Yeah. And so if I can help people do that in time, I'll spin a lot of plates and wear a lot of hats, but I will always make time for that. That's what's important.
That's awesome. So, well, your title of your book, Conquer Your Crisis of Consciousness.
It's a mouthful.
Some people, they don't even realise that they're going through anything and they're just doing the 9 to 5 grind, 7 days or 5 days a week or whatever.
That's me. That was me.
Yeah, and don't even realise. Whereas these are my thoughts, that everybody has a gift of some description or something that they're passionate about, that they love doing, that they can also help open everyone else's mind by just getting into that thing that they love doing.
Yeah, absolutely. Geez, that's another podcast entirely.
Yeah,
just
that really
talking
is,
about
isn't
that.
it?
That's a big one. And look, I feel lucky that I'm able to have time to think about some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Some other people don't, right? And I don't have time for it either, to be honest with you. My job is crazy.
Well, not momentarily.
Not momentarily because I'm busy, but some of the other things that I've spoken about in the book, people have got families, they've got kids, they got the job, they've got all these impacts on their time.
Yeah.
One of the things I talk about in the book is not mistaking your time for your energy. Yeah. Right, and this is a bit of a concept that needs some explaining. So, I'll let, people maybe read those concepts or listen to some of the stuff that we're talking about, and feel free to reach out to me to ask, because it's a little bit of an original thought that I've explored with some of the people that I was talking to. Right, but the essence of it is not mistaking your time for your energy. And I think we often do, right? Yeah. So just because I've got a 65-hour-a-week job and I'm thinking for another 30 hours a week, does that require my time and my energy? Or does it just, in certain points, require both of those things? But sometimes, when it's just the busy work or weather, I can remove the energy part, invest the time because it needs to happen. There's no way that we can just, scoot through life without giving it.
Yeah.
But then I might have a little bit of a reserve
Yeah.
where I can then invest it into the things that really matter.
Yeah.
Right? And you can recognize this within your own life with, elements like when you're too tired to invest the time with your spouse or your partner or your friends or your family or whatever your particular situation may be. So if you think of time and energy, and I talk about it in the book about gamifying it, right? So treat it like a video game where you get to choose where you put both your time, but time is a finite resource, but your energy is a well that can be replenished, but it's also finite to a point.
Yeah, well,
right?
because you become exhausted if you
that's
exert
right.
too
If
much.
your energy is going on places where it's just not being valued or you don't value it, well, then you don't have any
Don't do
left
it.
at the end of the day or at whenever it's, at the start of the day in bad scenarios. So if you think about these concepts just as a little bit independently, it'll help you. Just even thinking about that, I think, helps you deliberately distribute your energy in a more effective way.
Very insightful.
Right? Yeah. And so these are the kinds of things without the hype, like I didn't want to put some of these things together in a way that normal people can sort of think about them and independently. This is not something that you have to go from, idea one to idea thing. You might disagree with some of them and call me a bullshit artist. I don't mind.
I don't think you will do that.
No,
it's incredibly insightful, and I think it's like a bit of a spark for you to have an insight into what your consciousness is, basically, rather than setting out strategic ways of how you move forward. You give people, something to think about.
If you take one thing away from it, I'm ecstatic. If you take one thing about it, and some things will resonate more than other things. Selfish forgiveness is going to really resonate with people that hold on to stuff. Expectation being the root of unhappiness. You can, do a bit of research on yourself for this. Listen to what Neil Strauss says about it. That might really resonate with people. Or just taking responsibility for everything in your life, right? And so this came across from some of the people that I've listened to throughout the years in with a bit more of a ball peen hammer approach. It's a little blunter with everything being your fault.
Yeah.
And I thought about that for a lot. I was introduced to that concept from the late and great Kerwin Ray, who's he does business mentoring. He does small business through the eyes of psychology, right? And he passed away a couple of months ago, right? And it was a bit of a shock to the system to see that happening. But he, some of the stuff that I learnt with him, was about 8 years ago now, 2016, 2017, really stayed with me. And one of those things was everything is your fault. So when I was thinking about it in the context of this, I wanted to flip that around a little bit to everything is your responsibility.
Yeah.
Because responsibility gives empowerment and hope, right? And direction. Whereas fault comes across to me as a little negative, right? And I don't want to. I want this to be, that's right. And not to say that it's wrong, right? It's just it's semantics.
Yeah.
But I think the way I'm delivering it for this, I'm talking about hope. I'm talking about, looking at things through the eyes of a softer lens rather than. Rather than that.
It's kind of hopeful what you're giving. It's your responsibility, meaning that you have the wherewithal to make your own decisions.
Exactly.
Once you're an adult, and you can either make the good ones or the bad ones.
That's right, and not necessarily good and bad. You do them both, right? Or whatever. But even it's just the stuff that's good for you inherently.
That's right.
Or if it's bad, you take responsibility for that as well, and then act accordingly, rather than just externalizing it and say, well, Stephen did this, and then I'm in a shit mood now because of this, or this didn't happen. Well, what could you control here, right? And this might just be the control freak freak in me that thinks about the fact, well, if you're not involved in the process, you have no, the word I keep looking for just keeps escaping me. You have no purchase on the outcome.
Yeah.
You've got no right to have any expectation on that outcome.
Yeah.
Right? So, because all of this stuff is often happening in your head, that feedback loop. So, so responsibility, selfish forgiveness, time and energy. There's a whole bunch of stuff here. Yeah. And I've hopefully designed the book and the audio book so people can address individual things. They can go back to stuff that, that's right. What was Frank talking about with the thing? That would be a great thought. If people have got that going through their head, it's like, what's that? I had a friend of mine who I was exploring through. I told his story part of his story in the book. And he rang me up and said, talk me through that time and energy thing again. And I'm like, okay. And so by talking through it, I'm learning it myself.
Yeah.
And he's like, that's really interesting. That's the way I sort of said it. I said that to said it to my friends. And then I've since said it to people who need to hear it. And I haven't referenced you once. I'm claiming it as my own idea.
Wow.
Right, no, I'm only joking. We did say that as a joke. But it's the point of it is that some people are talking about it with me and then talk about it with somebody else.
Yeah.
And even if they then make their own version of it, and develop that idea even further, then great. We are talking about some stuff that really matters to impact your day-to-day,
And the collective.
But it starts inside.
That's right.
You cannot, it's like when you're on a plane, and they give you the safety demonstration, right? And, when the airbags drop down, when in case of an emergency, fit your own mask before you fit other ones.
Yeah.
I would argue it's probably because your children are really annoying, but no, I think it's because if you can't breathe, you can't help anybody else breathe.
Very true.
But your children are probably annoying as well.
All the mums are going.
Yeah, the mums and dads are like, where do I sign up?
Yeah. Well, how privileged and lucky are you that, you had this channel through you, I guess.
Well, that's an interesting way of putting it. Like I say, I've tried to keep this fairly grounded.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to disagree with you. I feel privileged that it has been a bit of a, that I've been a mouthpiece and a conduit for this. These are ideas that I've been having for a while, but I don't think that I'm coming up with original concepts here. I've maybe been able to sort of channel them. I'm, reasonably good with some words, so start cobble some of these things together.
Yeah.
But, I won't disagree with you that I'm sort of putting together some ideas that sort of are coming to me, and I'm pretty grateful and thankful that that's a thing.
Well, you've also worked in a different industry for many, many years, and now writing and moving into this industry. Obviously, there is some sort of force driving you that needs you to get out and tell everybody this. So
that's a good point. Yeah, I think about that a lot, but maybe not enough as well.
Yeah.
Like I say, still got a day job doing this stuff.
Yeah.
Delivering this helps me deal with that.
Yeah.
Right, which is a weird thing that making me busier is actually helping me be better.
Yeah.
In a way. So that's when you start to think about some other stuff, not necessarily within the book. It's okay, so I've made myself exceptionally busy, but by putting this stuff on paper and then recording it and going through this process and putting an avenue together for other people to understand it, it's made me insanely busy for the last 8 or 9 months. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I have to justify it. So what does that extrapolate out to other people? It means that they might be have in a similar scenario to me, where they're crazy and going, they're very busy with their jobs and families and whatever. They might even take some downtime. They might be in front of the television and relax and whatever. But that might not be, that relaxation might not be filling the hole. That might not be replenishing their energy stores. It might not be slowing down what's going on in their head. And, it might be crazy up in there, I know what it is. If you're anything like in my head, it's going all the time. Yeah, right. I don't think we're alone.
Yeah.
So you think about it like that. So I put in more time than I've ever done. I've never been busier in my life. And that was not the only thing I was doing. I was doing some podcasting commercially, all this different stuff.
Yeah,
I've never been busier.
You're busy.
However, by doing it, it made me more content.
Fulfilled.
Or at least on the path to.
Awesome.
Because I'll say it again, I'm not screaming from any mountaintop of happiness here. This is not any sort of preach. I'm working through this.
Yeah.
And if I can help people sort of start on the path, because it's an ongoing process. There's no silver bullet. I'm sorry to say.
It's a journey, not a destination, right?
Yeah, well, and even further than that, it's the journey. It's what you're doing on the journey. Yeah, it's like, okay, well, we might never get there, but what are you doing along the way? You know, who are you becoming along the way?
That's it,
right? That's I think that's an important thing to realize. Not just even, that evolution that happens on that path is quite extraordinary.
Very true. I can definitely relate to that on mine. Well, congratulations on writing it.
Thank you very much, and thank you to you, right, Simone. When you're on this path, for anyone who goes down this path, that feels like they've got something to say, and you go down this path, because it's not for everyone. It's a lot of work, and not everyone's got the desire or capability to do this. But I say this within my business, when I'm consulting, but I'll also say it very specifically to recording an audiobook, because I wanted my voice to come across on the audiobook. So there's a variety of channels. You can try and do it yourself. You can use an audio engineer, whatever. But by using your service, right, a Brisbane Audiobook Production, shameless plug.
Thank you.
You helped me find my voice, right? And you helped me find some of the things and help support the ideas and the direction I wanted to take in a way that I wouldn't have been able to find. It's definitely doing it myself, but without someone with the experience in the audiobook game, especially in Australia. Because Australia, it's kind of it's growing.
Definitely.
I started listening to audiobooks when I was, after I was studying for my MBA, and I was consuming so much just garbage, like just textbooks and it was all academic stuff. So I couldn't really listen. I couldn't read for fun anymore, and that was a big part of my life. I love reading. My escapism for me through a book is one of the best things. And so that's when audiobooks were introduced to me a few years ago. And now I love them. It's my default as to how I escape. I listen to them at night to help me sleep, because then I can attach my mind to someone else's thoughts rather than be dwelling on my own. And I've got amazing respect for narrators, in a fiction sense and a non-fiction sense, but in fiction, geez, these guys are
amazing,
underappreciated, and I tipped my hat if I was wearing one.
I work with some rock stars who do it.
I
They're
bet you
incredible,
do. And they come back to you because you're a professional in this space. You understand how it works, and it helps deliver a better product.
That's right.
Right? And so when I'm consulting to companies, you make sure you focus on where you're making your money, right? So if you're not an accountant, stop trying to do the books. If you're better off at doing business development and strategy, well, in my accommodation business, stop cleaning toilets. You've got to understand where your money is made, right? So by bringing on professionals to help you deliver where your money is made, so I'm not spending hours and days and weeks and going crazy with the editing and the thing, and because this is not an easy thing.
Back to the energy and time.
Exactly, right? But back to investing your energy and time, 100%. It all comes back to some of these concepts.
Definitely.
I'd like to think.
Sure
But
does.
thank you very much for the experience of and reminding me stuff that I already knew. Use a professional to do professional work, and so thank you again. It's a hell of an experience.
Thank you, my pleasure. And you said, I think you were saying I can come in and do it all in one day, and then I said, look, that's an interesting part. It's a full-on thing, and you need a lot of energy and concentration. So,
well, it wasn't War and Peace that I've written, right? It's only we've got a few hundred pages there, and I could read it in one day, right? It's possible, but that's not the best product that you get.
That's right.
And you're kind of insistent, like, well, let's just step it out over a couple of days. And I'm thankful that you relied on your own professionalism to convey that to me, because it gave a better product in the end.
Awesome,
right? Because at the end of a thing, I could read that book in 7 hours, right? And we could even edit it properly. Can read it so it's editable properly, but then you don't get the soul that is.
That's what I want.
Yeah, you want the soul, especially when the narrator is the author.
That's right.
Because reading your own words is tough. right? But then at the same time, it's harder because you have to not just read your words.
You've got to mean
got
them.
to mean them and be them.
Yeah, that's right.
And that takes effort, emotional effort, energy,
Yeah.
in fact.
Yeah.
And so thank you for helping me, make this a reality, because I couldn't be happier with the finished
Yay.
product. Now,
It's beautiful.
As far as, and I mean functionally, operationally finished product, these concepts and ideas are always evolving. I already see an update to this
Sweet.
before it's even released, right? Because, like I say, we're working through this, as we go. We all are.
That's right,
so,
and growing as you do it.
That's right. So who knows where this is going to do? But
It's
if
exciting.
I do an update, or if I or for the next thing that I'm writing, because the ideas are bubbling away, I'll definitely be coming back to help
Awesome.
to you to help me deliver it.
Thank you,
Yeah.
Frank. I can't wait to hear your book then.
Oh, jeez, pressure's on.
No pressure. You got a lot on.
I think hopefully with Conquer Your Crisis of Consciousness, I earn a few brownie points to start talking about some of the bigger
Definitely.
things here.
Definitely.
Because you might feel an undercurrent of, I'm just sort of skirting around a couple of issues here. I might need to be able. I might feel the need to delve into some of the bigger stuff later, but I feel like I need to earn the trust of an audience first,
Yeah.
and I hope through this I get that.
Well,
Yeah.
I certainly think you will. I mean, you're an authority now on that topic, once you're an author. And you've got your release coming up. You said February 27th.
February 27th we'll be releasing. We'll be having an exclusive little launch party in Brisbane.
Awesome.
If you want to come along and hear me speak for a little bit, you're welcome to reach out to me directly. You
Yep,
can just
how do
reach
people
out to
do
me.
that?
Frank at theconsciousnessinitiative.com. If you're like me, that's going to be very difficult to spell multiple times. I hope I've spelled it correctly in the book.
And on the cover.
Yeah, but more so just to get access to the audiobook and the book and the ebook, which will probably be one of the more accessible ways to get it. It'll be available on the 27th of February.
And website?
And the website, theconsciousnessinitiative.com.
Fantastic.
All right. And so Frank at theconsciousnessinitiative.com for my email address, and that URL is the same for the website.
All right, excellent.
Not there, not live yet. We're 27th of February. We're going to do a big launch. So
All right, so from the 27th of February on, you can find it there.
absolutely.
And what about, can people connect with you on LinkedIn and Facebook?
Absolutely. Like that'll all be live then as well. You can just search for my name on LinkedIn because I've got a professional profile there as well.
Frank Matus?
So just Frank Matus, Matus.
Yeah.
You'll find me on Instagram and Facebook as well. It'll be at the Consciousness Initiative on all of those platforms. And as we grow, so will the platforms.
And your podcast?
Well, the podcast is a different one. You can go to Resort Brokers for my professional podcast if you're in the accommodation industry, or if you live in a strata scheme in southeast Queensland.
Okay.
Or my podcast. We've just changed branding. It used to be called Checked In with Resort Brokers, but you can find it under Resort Brokers Radio now. We talk about the communities that live and surround the accommodation industry within Australia.
Right.
So recently we've done some recordings with an academic that sits on the 100-day Olympic Review Committee for Brisbane.
Wow.
And some of the biggest developers in southeast Queensland.
Very cool.
To help, for
Insightful.
talking about that housing crisis. We've got property economists that talk to us about what's happening with interest rates and the effect on, especially with Brisbane, but nationally as well. So
Good timing
RB
to watch
Radio,
that.
Resort Brokers Radio, you can find it on the Resort Brokers website or search on YouTube. That's available on Spotify and Apple and anywhere you get your podcasts.
How awesome
And it's
is
a
this
video.
guy?
Thank you very much.
How awesome.
Thank you. Right back at you.
And busy, and obviously you've got a lot of things going on, but you can definitely feel your passion.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yep.
That's the rub. Right
Yeah,
there.
that's it.
That's the rub.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll chat again down the track when you've got
I'd like
things
to.
all going.
100%. We can come back and talk about how
The next book.
Yeah, the next book. Exactly how that starts
Yeah.
to manifest itself.
Yeah. Thanks so much for spending the time with me
Thank
today.
you for having me. Cheers.
Don't forget to like the video, share the video so you can help get Frank's message out there.
Wherever the links are in the video. This way?
down. I
Yeah,
think.
that's right.
Subscribe to the Simone Feiler podcast. I'd love to help other authors, including Frank, get their word out, their message out, and information about their books. And that's helped by you by subscribing to my channel and sharing the videos. And thank you. And if you want to make your audiobook dream a reality, please look me up. I'd love to help.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining the Simone Feiler podcast.
What's your story?
Contact Simone for a chat at brisbaneaudiobookproduction.com.